Okay, I think we will get started, and if others join us, they will hop in as we begin our workshop. I want to make sure that we have enough time. Oh, great! So we see our settings have been updated, and we're starting to see introductions come in. Thank you so much. All right. So as you're all, and I think maybe we can place the prompt in the chat a few more times as people are coming in so that new participants can see it. Great, good morning. Okay, we are going, I think, to jump in. Welcome to this Train the Trainer webinar today, The Real Deal on COVID-19 Vaccines. I would like to introduce the team that's here to support this workshop today before we screen share the deck and a facilitator guide for you to follow along with the Train the Trainer event will be placed into the chat shortly. So firstly, my name is Hannah Stewart Lathan, and I work with the CUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy at the New York Vaccine Literacy Campaign. We are a community engagement and capacity building campaign that is where our primary mission is to lighten the load of community organizations in the 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as the 4 lower counties of New York, Rockland, Westchester counties, and Long Island. We work with community organizations there to support them either in educational efforts through methods like this Train the Trainer, to provide tailored materials to organizations who want to promote the COVID-19 vaccines or vaccine education. We host webinars and provide technical assistance for organizations as well, and we send a monthly newsletter and a whole host of other efforts. We work closely with the Harlem Health Initiative, and Deborah Levine, who's the director of that initiative, is with us today. And we are more than happy to, thanks for saying hi, Deborah. We're more than happy to follow up with you after this training to provide additional resources to your organizations as we can best help your efforts. So with that said, and I will be leading the training today. With that said, I will pass to my colleagues, Lauren, Karen, and Jen, to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Lauren, and I work with Hannah on this project, the Vaccine Literacy Campaign, and some other research that we're doing at the CUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy. We're very interested in supporting vaccine communication efforts and education efforts, and really happy to have everyone here. I'll pass it to Karen.
Good morning, everyone. We're really excited to have everyone here today. My name is Karen Ortiz, and I'm the program assistant for the Vaccine Literacy Campaign. And we are all very approachable and look forward to contacting one another after the workshop.
Go for it, Jen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I'm a medical student who is here to support the New York Vaccine Literacy Project by answering whatever medical questions I can answer and helping out however I can. It's nice to meet you all.
Great, thank you so much. So I will just start by sharing as I place I think a colleague of mine is going to place a link in the chat for this public access facilitator guide that you're welcome to follow along with today as we move through a deck that we will screen share for you, and then follow up after with you to provide you with a PowerPoint version of this deck that you can use to facilitate with your youth and young adult audiences. So before we, actually, I think, Karen, if you want to go ahead and start to screen share, I'll just give a little bit of background about the workshop, how we've developed it so far, and what we're going to do today. This workshop is a basic science-based training about how the COVID-19 vaccines work that is geared toward youth and young adult audiences. The facilitator guide that is in the chat is one that you, of course, as you're facilitating, would be welcome to download, to make your own personal notes in it, all the things that facilitators commonly do. But this public access guide is something that you will be able to refer to with updates as we make them as a team. The guide is updated as of yesterday, even with the news that boosters are now available in New York City to all who are 18 or older who got vaccinated at least 6 months ago. And we'll continue to make updates like that to the facilitator guide as we learn more about the sorts of questions that people may want to ask you when you are facilitating this to your own audiences. The deck itself has been developed to be updated far less frequently. We worked with both youth as well as young adults at the Urban Assembly School for Leadership and Empowerment, with Teens Pact's youth peer health educator program at Community Healthcare Network, as well as young adults who are students at Hostos Community College to workshop this. And we're very pleased and excited to finally make the materials publicly available and to share them with you today. The workshop itself is intended to be facilitated in about 1 hour, recognizing that you all facilitate in various environments for various periods of time. And certainly, as with much curriculum that we all work with, you could potentially expand this to be a 75-minute workshop. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through it today. This workshop has in total 90 minutes, so that we can pause as we move through for questions that you may have about the deck itself, best practices for facilitating this material, or even questions about the COVID-19 vaccines themselves. And that's really why Jen Luck is with us today. As she mentioned, she'll be with us until 11 to answer any questions that you may have about the vaccines. And that's to offer an added layer to you as potential facilitators of confidence in facilitating this material, while we recognize that when you are facilitating to young people, that as was the case when I was a health educator, my background is in sexual health education, and I worked with youth and young adults for about 7 years. And we completely recognize that the role when facilitating this workshop will not be to offer a medical background, but rather a science-based understanding of these vaccines to young people. So with all of that said, and thank you all for continuing to introduce yourselves in the chat. I see a few people have come in recently. So if you'd like to please share your name, organization, the county or region you work in, age groups that you work with, that would be great. And we'll jump into it. So I've shared, I'm looking at the guide itself now. We've discussed the target audience. We've given an overview of the facilitator guide and what we'll get into. There are some other, the guide begins with learning objectives that include what components of the deck will be the focus, key messages, as well as a learning timeline. When we can go to the next slide, Karen.
Sorry, just having some technical difficulties.
Great. All right. So when you first, we'll move to the part of the facilitator guide, if you're following along, that includes a step-by-step guide to facilitating the workshop. So the first thing that you'll do is welcome participants to the workshop, and we'll briefly, you'll introduce yourselves, any co-facilitators, and we recommend that you begin with a warm-up or an icebreaker. In this case, it's called, actually, could we go back to the one before, Karen, the introductions? Thank you. So firstly, we recommend that you introduce a quick activity, because this will be facilitated virtually, where people can share their names, their pronouns, and a prompt like something that they're obsessed with right now, something that will get youth talking. And then we can go to the next slide. We've offered a second supplementary activity that if you have the time, or if you are working in especially after school spaces outside of a very strict 45-minute classroom window, you could play another Zoom game like What's in the Bag. But these, of course, can be interchanged for any activity that you would like to play. And then we can go to our next slide. So we have developed pre-post surveys that are very quick and anonymous that we ask that you offer to the young people that you facilitate to before and after the workshop. This link that is in the slide is the same link that everyone will use, and we will track responses to both get a sense of how often and to how many people the workshop is being facilitated to out in the world, and then also to understand pre and post knowledge and confidence in speaking about vaccines on the part of the young people who you will be facilitating to. We can go to the next slide. So I'm sure most people in the room are probably quite familiar with working with young people. So we, of course, can't move into a workshop about a sensitive health topic without establishing group agreements. The details of these agreements are listed in the facilitator guide. So we won't, unless anyone has any questions about a particular group agreement here, I think we don't need to dig too deeply into them today. I'll pause for just a minute to see if you have questions either about the group agreements or about what we've discussed so far. And thank you to those who've joined us since we started. Okay, great. So we can move to our next slide. All right, so now is really when the workshop opens. We have an agenda slide, this flyer that or graphic web art that is here is from a global art campaign about the vaccines that will be credited later in the deck. You'll share with participants that today really the objectives of what you'll get into are what are these vaccines and explaining how they work, making a COVID-19 vaccine appointment, and then space for their questions and answers. And we recommend that you aim to leave, depending on your class time, around 10 to 15 minutes at least to take questions if you plan to parking lot them. And the initial question that we ask youth to share is, what do you know about the COVID-19 vaccines? And for those who are following along in the guide, I'm now at the bottom of page 5. This question will help you to get a good idea of what's on the minds of the workshop participants. You can also make a note of any potential misinformation that may be shared that you may want to correct throughout your workshop. And it also empowers the participants as knowledgeable in the learning process around the COVID-19 vaccines. And so we start off in shared dialogue about our knowledge rather than our lack of knowledge. All right, and we can go to the next slide. So the next slides, we have about 5 of them, and not all include most up-to-date data, but at this point, we're at the top of page 6 in the facilitator guide. And I'll share here that really we want to set the stage with the young people that we're facilitating to about the state of vaccination where they live. And I've made a slide today with the most up-to-date data as of yesterday for youth and young adults in the Bronx. We compare the status of vaccination of 12 to 15-year-olds in the Bronx to that of those living in Manhattan, which at this point is actually slightly greater than 99%. We also speak about that for older adults and, older teens and young adults 16 to 25 in that region. You can see, if Karen, you don't mind just kind of flipping through the next 4, that we have templates for you here based on where you're facilitating. We've added one template for each borough, and we added also one template for one of the counties. I believe Suffolk County is the last slide that we've offered. And when you receive the PowerPoint, you'll be able to tailor this yourself to whatever region that you're teaching in. You can see in the facilitator guide, and I saw somebody come in to the room, so I'm just going to add one more time the facilitator guide link in the chat for you who just came in. You can see that we have offered a link for where you can retrieve this information before your workshop begins. Navigating on, it's a state website that offers the vaccine uptake by demographic data. You navigate to the age section of that page, and then you can select the region and county that you want to see for the uptake rates. And this is how you can update these slides yourself in advance of your workshop with young people. All right, so then we can move to our next slide. So at this point, you're getting into what to expect when you get the vaccine. There are many videos throughout this deck that really are in an effort to build almost like a ladder, the understanding for young people about the science behind these COVID-19 vaccines. And so the first that we start with is this video by Hip Hop Public Health Network. All links to these videos will be included in the PowerPoint deck that you'll receive after, and they are all in the facilitator guide as well. So when you get to this place, you can tell young people that the first thing that we want to look at is what is the experience really like to get a COVID-19 vaccine, and the doctor in this video is going to share a bit about it. You can ask them to listen out for what she says about side effects and how the vaccines work. So we'll play this video for you now. All right.
We got the vaccine, they got the vaccine, we got the vaccine. We can get back to normal, let me inform you, let's all get the vaccine. It's about community immunity. I'm talking unity for you and me. If Doc says it's good, then trust me, it's good. Now let's all get the vaccine.
Shot from the dot, she hit the spot. Then I felt a little tired and maybe a little hot. I'm a sore, my body and my head did ache. Woke up the next day and I was straight. It takes one shot and you're through, or you might need two. Gotta get a repeat and wait a few weeks for the peace. Is that but the truth I speak? We in a peak. Vaccines can't prevent a defeat. Immunity instead of eulogy, duty for the community. Getting it expeditiously, forget the conspiracy theories. Gotta get the blood ready to fight with some antibodies set to kill the virus on sight. It don't matter which type, we get them for free. You can bet they set to protect you secretly. Roll up your sleeve, cause the vaccine is key. Cause it ain't about me, it's about we.
Okay, great. So after you share this video with them, we'll move to this next. All right, so we'll move to this next slide, and the next slide is really a reflection of what the young people learned when watching this video. So even potentially before moving to this slide, you could remain here to ask them first, what did they hear about the experience of getting the vaccine, about side effects that were shared. And then the next slide goes into what these common side effects are, and the focus really of the information, because still at this point, only mRNA vaccines are available to young people, to minors. We focus on the details about 2-dose vaccines for them. So for Moderna and Pfizer, you wait a few weeks between doses to get your second vaccine. 2 weeks after your second dose, you're fully protected against COVID-19. And we have updated this information to, of course, reflect that the Pfizer vaccine is the only one approved right now for youth 5 to 11, as well as teens who are 12 to 17 years old. And this is a place where you can, after you ask them about side effects and emphasize really the doctor's description of waiting after a couple of days. She said she woke up the next day and she was straight. You can really reflect on the specific lyrics there to speak with them about how the vaccines work. And this also can be a good place to validate the initial video by sharing your own personal experience, if you're comfortable to do that, to share about what it was like when you got vaccinated and felt fine. For example, when I see we do have some hostos people in the room today, and I'm welcome. When we recently were workshopping this with the hostos community college students, I remember sharing that because at the time I was a direct service worker when the COVID vaccine first came out. I was still a sexual health educator and counselor. And I shared with them that I had gotten the vaccine, that I was one of the first 2% of people in the country to get the vaccine. And those sorts of anecdotes, I think, lay a great groundwork for both opening the dialogue and for others to share their experience, which is what happened oh, thank you for sharing that. Do you mean Matthew woke up the next day and I was straight? Is that the point that you're making there? Yeah, that's a great point, and I do appreciate that. You know, I think that we do in you'll see in our facilitator guide that we have an annex at the end of this guide about resources for explicit LGBTQ plus inclusion, and we offer both language recommendations for how to speak with young people. That does make this workshop inclusive, and I think it's understandable if you were to find that to be that particular word in this video to be a barrier to learning. Then we are happy to offer other potential videos that could be a replacement there for this first video. I think the important thing is, I'll say that when we have workshopped this, and we have workshopped it in queer spaces, the video did, for those particular audiences, anecdotally open up both kind of a comfort with the topic, and it's a little bit cheesy and a little bit funny. And there were some young people who I think kind of felt comfortable to start sharing a little bit more based on that video. Found it more humorous than anything else. Yeah, I think, and that's really kind of what I think young people find about that video. My experience at this point with the various groups we've worked with, that they find it a bit disarming, but I completely validate and understand maybe potentially wanting to change that video to another. So just looking back at our facilitator guide, so you can ask here if they have any questions about side effects before moving on. And at that point, we would move to the next video clip. So we pause after, and I should also say here that each video builds on. This is one thing where we've kind of incorporated that video to reflect learning benchmarks throughout the hour. The lyrics from that video, like, here you see, gotta get the blood ready to fight with some antibodies set to kill the virus on site, kind of set the stage for the next video, which speaks about how vaccines help our immune systems. And this video is also very much targeted toward youth, even potentially younger adolescents. But it's just a quick way to share what the immune system's role is for those who may not have encountered that through science classes. So I'll play this video clip quickly.
Here's how vaccines work. When a germ enters your body, it tries to make you sick. Certain cells in your body recognize the germ as a bad guy that needs to be destroyed. That's why your body produces armies of germ-fighting cells called antibodies. Antibodies recognize the germ invaders and attach on them to fight the germ. If the antibodies are strong enough, they will kill the germs so you stay healthy. Vaccines help your body make these antibodies in a very safe way.
Great. So that clip is a pretty small piece of that larger video. We offer those timestamps for you in the facilitator guide. And I see somebody asked, are there any interactive ways where workshop participants can share their experiences or their knowledge questions on vaccines anonymously? Folks are not always comfortable sharing in a group setting. I think that's a really great point. You know, something that we did not include in our facilitator guide, but can certainly add today, which is, I think, the wonderful benefit of this guide being public access and able to be updated as ideas are shared with us, or, you know, as we reflect on what could be more explicitly recommended, is some of you may have used Google Jamboards in the past. I've used those with youth through Zoom education platforms, and a Jamboard might be a great way to let people ask anonymous questions. You know, depending on how much time you have and how comfortable you are, I think it does depend sometimes on the facilitator's comfort level with kind of toggling between platforms. You know, in all workshops with the 3 organizations I work with to build this, we used the DMs heavily. And I think, you know, for those of you who work with peer health educators, really empowering those youth who are helping you to co-facilitate is also a recommended way to kind of encourage anonymous interaction, because and that is also something that in the past I've done a lot through sexual health, is having a youth peer educator with me there to really encourage and facilitate kind of reading out of the DMs. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure to update, maybe if someone on my team right now, so I don't forget, could make a note somewhere for us to add a link to the Jamboard as an interactive way to engage. I'll make sure that that's added to the guide as well. So, all right, so at this point, we've talked with the young people about how vaccines help our immune systems. You can ask you can stop there for reflection, ask them what they heard in that video. And then
Here's how vaccines work.
A weird quirk of the Google Slides is that when you move off of a video, it starts to replay again. So after we jump into, you know, what is the immune system kind of at its core, then we can start to talk about the mRNA vaccines themselves. And again, we don't offer videos in this workshop about the J&J vaccine. We focus only on mRNA since that's what's available to youth. So I will play this video clip now that shows how mRNA vaccines work.
You can think of vaccines like a biological wanted poster. They show our bodies how to recognize the enemy, an antigen, such as a harmful virus or bacteria, so we know how to react if it ever shows up. Our bodies will be prepared to send T cells to attack infected cells, and B cells to produce antibodies, which neutralize the virus and prevent it from invading healthy cells. mRNA vaccines use innovative technology to deliver protection. If traditional vaccines deliver wanted posters, these vaccines carry USB drives with instructions that tell our cellular machinery how to print its own poster. In other words, they instruct the body to make its own antigens. In the case of the coronavirus, the antigen is the infamous spike protein that attaches to and infects your cells.
Okay, great.
You can think of
all right, so that's our opening video to how mRNA vaccines work. You know, if at that point students have questions, of course, you can stop to take them. I would recommend summing up a little bit of what was heard, or asking a student to help, if you have an engaged group, a vocal group over Zoom, asking them to help summarize what they heard. Then before really taking
think of vaccines like
a deep dive into the mRNA technology, I'd recommend moving fairly quickly to this TikTok. Some of you may have seen it at this point. It's definitely made the rounds on, if those of you follow newsletters like Project Vector from Public Good Projects and others, at this point it's become a bit popular. And this TikTok basically just offers kind of like soap opera drama of what it happens in the body when the mRNA vaccine has been administered.
You need to make this. What is it? It's a part of a virus. A virus? Just a part of it, not the actual virus. They're called COVID-19. They have 4 cans and they're coming. 4 cans? Please. What is this? This messenger told me to make them. I've never seen these before. Make some new antibodies, get rid of them. Seize the forks. Nice body. I'm going to make this place my new home. 4 cans. Seize them.
Okay, so let me pause this. So at that point, that's probably where you will get a lot of comments from your young people with emojis and phrases like, I'm dead in the chat. This was definitely a huge success in all workshopping of this module, to then stop and ask really what was it that they saw about how the mRNA vaccines work. We've offered an answer or just explanation in the guide on the bottom of page 8, top of page 9, to help you to explain what they just witnessed there. So quickly, I'll kind of go through that for those who are following along in the guide. We ask, do you want to explain what the mRNA vaccines are and how they work? And we want them to really leave understanding that the vaccine tells your body how to produce a certain part of the COVID-19 virus, not the entire virus, so that if you contract COVID-19, then your immune system knows how to fight it. The mRNA or the messenger, that focusing on the messenger in mRNA is very helpful, gives the instruction to your immune system, and then it is gone. The messenger becomes destroyed by your body, and all that's left is the genetic code that your body needs to fight the virus. That comes through the vaccine inside what's called a fatty lipid particle, which is harmless to the body. And once it finds your immune system's fighter cells, they take that code, and then your body learns to be prepared for this bad guy, COVID-19, so that if you get infected, you have the tools to fight it off so you don't get seriously sick. And so there's a little bit more to that explanation there, but that's what you can offer them at that point once the mRNA explainers have happened. And as always, this is a good time to pause for questions. I will say that this is a point where you probably will expect to get a good bit of questions from young people, because humor just happened. They, may want to try to understand a little bit more what it is that they saw there. And we move pretty, I think the transition has been very clean to move from how mRNA vaccines work to how we know that they have efficacy. And so there is a 2-part video here, or it's one video, and you can play 2 parts of it. We offer those timestamps to share that we know that these vaccines work the way that they're supposed to work, which is to prevent illness and death. So I'll play the 2 clips of this video for you now. Some of you may also have seen this because it's a pretty popular Vox video. So we'll jump into that.
A vaccine's efficacy rate is calculated in large clinical trials when the vaccine is tested on tens of thousands of people. Those people are broken into 2 groups. Half get the vaccine and half get a placebo. Then they're sent out to live their lives while scientists monitor whether or not they get COVID-19 over several months. In the trial for Pfizer-BioNTech, for example, there were 43,000 participants. In the end, 170 people were infected with COVID-19. And how those people fall into each of these groups determines a vaccine's efficacy. If the 170 were evenly split, that would mean you're just as likely to get sick with the vaccine as without it. So it would have a 0% efficacy. If all 170 were in the placebo group and 0 people who got the vaccine were sick, the vaccine would have an efficacy of 100%. With this particular trial, there were 162 in the placebo group and just 8 in the vaccine group. It means those who had the vaccine were 95% less likely to get COVID-19. The vaccine had a 95% efficacy. Now, this doesn't mean if 100 people are vaccinated, 5 of them will get sick. Instead, that 95% number applies to the individual. So each vaccinated person is 95% less likely than a person without a vaccine to get sick each time they're exposed to COVID-19. And every vaccine's efficacy rate is calculated in the same way. But each vaccine's trial might be done in very different circumstances.
Okay, great. So that's the first part of the video that we'll share.
And
I'll move on to our second one.
These efficacy numbers really just tell you what happened in each vaccine's trial, not exactly what will happen in the real world. But many experts argue this isn't even the best number to judge a vaccine by anyway, because preventing any infection at all is not always the point of a vaccine.
The goal of a vaccine program for COVID-19 is not necessarily to get to COVID-0, but it's to tame this virus, to defang it, to remove its ability to cause serious disease, hospitalization, and death.
It helps to look at the different outcomes of an exposure to COVID-19 like this. The best case scenario is you don't get sick at all. The worst case is death. In between, there's being hospitalized, severe to moderate symptoms, or having no symptoms at all. In the absolute best circumstances, vaccines give you protection all the way to here. But realistically, that isn't the main objective of COVID-19 vaccines. The real purpose is to give your body enough protection to cover these possibilities. So if you do get an infection, it feels more like a cold than something you'd be hospitalized for. And this is one thing that every one of these COVID-19 vaccines do well. In all these trials, while some people in the placebo groups were hospitalized or even died from COVID-19, not one fully vaccinated person in any of these trials was hospitalized or died from COVID-19. One thing.
Okay, great. So I saw there was a question in the chat from, oh, thanks, Lauren. Great. So Don had asked, why does it say AstraZeneca, not Moderna, which seems a better known name? The video was created originally for global audiences, and AstraZeneca is more widely distributed in countries outside of the US. We did include it anyway because it is on point and it has clear, simple language. And the takeaway really here, and I think something that again and again in workshopping this with the roughly I'd say 200 or so young people that we did, it came up. So this is of course anecdotal, but still with a fairly large group of young people overall who we workshopped it with. It came up again and again that it was not clear the benefits of vaccination because it has become understood as it should, because it is the reality that a person can still be infected with COVID-19 even if they are vaccinated. And so really using these videos to prompt the discussion about the point of these vaccines, that they are meant to prevent serious illness and death, and that all of them do that extremely well, is really what we want to be the primary takeaway, here. Let's see, I'll move back over to my facilitator guide to see if there's anything else that I would like to share. you know, that's a great place to stop for questions. It tends to be this video series as well does tend to elicit a good bit of questions from young people. And we have this video did a great job of teaching that point. Yeah, I think so. And it's one that the young people we've worked with have been extremely responsive to when we've shared it. And we actually, you know, this is of the whole, you know, 200, this is a single reaction, but it really stood out to me that we had one young person share that they had been vaccinated, but they had not really understood why they got vaccinated. It's become, you know, it's become in a lot of spaces, especially in New York, a cultural norm. Our vaccination rates compared to many places in the country, you know, at this point are excellent, of course, with the asterisk there that it often depends by zip code and other factors. So I through workshopping this, met a lot of young people who had been vaccinated but still had questions. And this particular young person really shared explicitly that these videos and this basic understanding of how they worked helped her to be able to put language to why she made that decision to do so, and to be able to talk with other people about why that decision is a healthy one to make. Great. Oh, thanks, Anita. So yeah, so you can stop for questions at this point, and then we move from there. I think again, what has felt like a very intuitive segue for young people from what is the point, how do we know these work the way they do, to the broader picture. Not just the fact that they work the way they do for you as an individual getting a shot in your arm, but for the community at large. And again, we pull from the lyrics in the initial Hip Hop Public Health video here. They say it's about community immunity. I'm talking unity for you and me. You can bet they protect us equally, because it ain't about me, it's about we. And at this point, we offer a graphic here that really explains how community protection, or sometimes called herd immunity, works. When some people get, or you can really kind of just pick up where it is, because the graphic just plays on a loop. So I might stop to let it circle back to its beginning. But at this point, you really want to explain that when nobody gets vaccinated, the disease can spread easily. And you can very much editorialize here to share that that's what happened when the whole world shut down, you know. And as these vaccines were introduced to us this January, some people got vaccinated and the spread of the disease started to slow. And this could be a good place to point to how many COVID-19 cases we currently have in the region that you're in versus how many there were for the first, you know, many months of this pandemic. And finally, we're back at the beginning, or we're in the middle of the loop now. But after pointing out that the disease started to slow in its spread as vaccination was rolled out, now that when most people get vaccinated in a community, then the disease cannot spread. And that's really what we're looking to do, is to stop it in its tracks. And for young people, you can make some analogies about how other illnesses or diseases are not common anymore for them. And a good one for this particular age group right now, compared to many of us in the room, is chickenpox. They do not have the same exposure to or experience with chickenpox as young people because of that vaccine. And that is one that we found to be very useful as a learning tool in talking about what community immunity does practically. So Anita says the video seems fast paced. It would be great to present it to other audiences in different languages and in a slower speed. That's a great point. And you know, the YouTube, I believe, does allow for speed adjustment. So I think that's a really great point. And I think if my team could make a note of that as well, that might be something that we could add as well to the facilitator guide, to point out that speed adjustment is a possibility. And I completely agree with you that these materials being presented, you know, a workshop like this in other language is something that we have not had the capacity as a team to do yet, but is absolutely an incredible point. And as far, finding the videos is something that we have not yet sought to do in terms of translating the guide. We as a team, I thank you for that recommendation, and we could start to look at doing that in Spanish particularly. And if there are others in the room who are interested to potentially work with us on translating into other languages additionally, we would be more than happy to talk with you about that. All right, and so after the community immunity slide, we move into the next kind of section of this workshop. At that point, really the knowledge base has been set. And so we want to move now to the deal with teens or young people in the vaccine and how they can get vaccinated. So we share here that youth 5 years old and up can get the Pfizer vaccine. We remind them that it's 2 doses, and that for minors, for young people, parents and guardians need to consent for them to get vaccinated, and that proof of age is necessary in order to get vaccinated. We do offer a note on consent for those who are 16 and older. As many of you may know, that a parent or guardian doesn't necessarily have to go with them in person. If they're not able to, they can consent on the phone or through a written statement. We offer here information about what that statement must include, as well as phone numbers both for the state and the city to call if they want, because it's recommended that people confirm in advance of going to a vaccination site that they can offer a written statement as opposed to an in-person recommendation. We've heard inconsistent accounts of that some sites would turn young people away without the parent present, even if they are 16 years old. So we recommend people call in advance. And then a big star kind of burst, comic burst on the right to point out that these vaccines are free for everybody, and that cost should not be a concern for anyone who wants to get vaccinated. So we offer also both for the state as well as for the city where to make an appointment, and these numbers and links are there for you to share with them. This is the art campaign that I mentioned at the very beginning that we used a graphic on the agenda slide. I knew, and I think, you can decide if you want to share this. This isn't necessarily crucial to the learning of the workshop, but I worked with several groups who I knew had many kind of artistic students in the room, and it seemed like it was something that they accessed and downloaded. So we offer that as a way to kind of encourage engaging with content that is positive about COVID vaccination online. At this point, you can stop for Q&A. Like I mentioned before, I know that so many of you are working in different spaces with different amounts of time. So if you decide to make a parking lot, if you want to Jamboard for anonymous questions, if you have a peer educator or a co-facilitator with you as you're working through this deck, you can kind of keep track of what those questions were, or just generally stop for a Q&A section at this point with your young people. And I think I may have said this earlier, but since we're on the slide now, to repeat, we recommend about at least 10 minutes for Q&A. My experience with some groups was that questions kind of flew throughout the workshop, and then, as you know, some are quieter, and it may kind of start with a bit of a trickle here, but there was never a group that I worked with in all of the workshopping of this that we did not end up with significant questions, even if it took a moment to really get them going. Then we have our post workshop link. That is the post survey assessment of their knowledge and comfort speaking about COVID-19 vaccination that we ask that you give to them to take before they leave the workshop. Again, both links are anonymous. And then after, there's a thank you slide that you can adapt for yourself. And and then there's a design credit slide as well to the creative people who made this deck that was approved by some of the young people at Teens Pact who I worked with. We also offer 2 additional slides that, in my experience, are not necessarily, it's not necessarily possible to cover these and do them justice in a 60-minute session, but I know that some of you will have 75 minutes, or you will see young people multiple times. Some of you are classroom teachers who are working with them and can kind of speak to this as you, you know, in and around other work that you're doing with them. So we do offer 2 kind of supplementary slides, one on how to talk to friends and family about getting vaccinated. And then we have a final slide on recognizing and addressing misinformation with friends and family. These are on pages 12 and 13 of the Facilitator guide. And we also, in that guide, not on this deck, we offer 2 supplemental videos as well if you want to turn this into if you want to kind of build on this learning objective to recognize misinformation and talk with friends and family about getting vaccinated. And so those videos are there for you if you would like to include them along with these recommendations for best practices, and hold a discussion around the video and these and the content on these slides. So that concludes the end of our workshop in terms of what the deck itself, the workshop that you would facilitate to young people. We've got additional time. We've ended at the hour for the workshop facilitation, and I wanted to make sure that we left enough space for any questions that you may have about facilitating this, or for any discussion that you would like to. Thanks. Okay, great. Thanks, Jen. Any questions that you have either about the deck, facilitating this with young people, the specific audiences that you're working with, or potentially COVID vaccine questions themselves, as best as we can answer them. Our resident medical expert has dropped off, but our team can certainly do our best to support you if you have questions about the vaccines themselves. So I'll pause there to see if there are any questions or comments. Oh, Matthew says, I love the last step, have an exit plan. Yes. I'm looking at this space in the guide. Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we're offering these recommendations. Frequently I've been in conversations with people who are wed to their facts. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so the focus really of both of these slides, of recognizing and addressing misinformation, as well as how to talk to friends and family about getting vaccinated, is rooted in building, in aligning, aligning ourselves in terms of finding a kind of a bridge to each other, right, if possible. And it's the exit plan is just that it's not always possible to find that bridge, and to find kind of a space of either shared interest. For example, like if the 2 people speaking both have older family members who they really care about, that might be kind of a way to open a door to a conversation about, well, if we both are 2 people sitting here who care about our older family members who we live with, what does that mean about what we do to keep them safe? But that's an incredibly important point, Matthew, that I think we need to equip our young people with, that even the most patient and compassionate conversations don't necessarily end in a productive way, and that's okay. Something too that you can also share with young people when talking about these is that the oh, sorry, I saw a comment come in the chat and I got distracted and I'm glad to read this. I'm Latino and I can't get info in Spanish frequently to educate to the members of the community. So do you mind me asking what are you working specifically with young people and young adults? And I'm sorry, I don't see, I couldn't speak to you by names. I don't see your name in the chat at your comment, but thank you for sharing. And we do have some resources that we've been working on about COVID vaccination ourselves and in partnership with Hunger Free NYC that are being translated to Spanish. So I just wanted to ask to make sure that I could get you the appropriate materials. And Anita says, overall, it's great to end the workshop with a call to action. Talking to friends and family is a good action item for people across all spectrums, people vaccinated, those who are considering, and those who are against it. Absolutely, yeah. And you know, if any of you are working in 45-minute time slots, I might recommend that you split this into 2 sessions. I apologize, I might have missed it in the facilitator guide. Can we use the content from this presentation? Oh, yes. So for those who can, I said this, and I'm sorry I didn't repeat this throughout for those who came in later. I think right as we started, I shared that the facilitator guide that you have been given the kind of open access link to, the one we'll continue to update, is paired with this deck, which you all will receive following. Yeah, absolutely, no problem. I'm sorry for not saying this again sooner. All of you will receive this deck as a PowerPoint. It's not really, the deck and the facilitator guide aren't really a one-to-one as far as our ability to update them through Google, because with the Google slides, as you saw, there is a lot of tailoring that will need to be done, adding your own logo and organization, your own name, updating the data about vaccine uptake in the region you're facilitating in. And so the plan here is that we will send you a PowerPoint that you can download and adapt as you would like to. And if there ever are any edits that warrant kind of a reissue essentially of the PowerPoint itself, we would send that to you all. And we have, we've documented not only who's here today, but who signed up for the workshop. And we also do have a website that will be launching pretty soon for the New York Vaccine Literacy Campaign. And these materials will be made available on the resources page of that website too. Okay, and then, so thank you, Susanna, for sharing. Oh, you're at the Healthcare Education Project. Incredible. That they're just that. Oh, okay, wonderful. What an awesome organization. We've gotten the privilege of working with HEP in a few ways through the Vaccine Literacy Campaign. And we have developed a flyer that we are about to approve or about to receive approval for with Hunger Free NYC that focuses specifically on COVID vaccination in immigrant populations, and it will be translated to Spanish as well. And I will make sure absolutely to get that to you. And if somebody maybe on my team could help make a note of that as soon as it's ready, we'll send it your way. And also those materials can be tailored with your logo. So I know that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I think it's important to share now that any flyers or content that we make, if you want to distribute them throughout your community with your logo on them, we can make that edit and get them to you, so that, if we know, of course, that those considerations build trust for some people, so they know who the material is coming from. We're happy to do that. Great. And I'm not sure if I said this ever explicitly, but anyone is welcome to come off mic and speak, ask questions or share that way. The chat's wonderful, but you're welcome to do that if there's anybody who would like to share either a question or a comment through the mic. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So Professor Dr. Hoyland is here She is an incredible professor of sociology at Hostos, and we worked with Hostos and Dr. Hoyland's students to train them on this workshop. She's offering help potentially. The school is a bilingual college for Susanna and potentially others. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then, can we create subtitles for the videos that you already have? I think that's an excellent recommendation. Someone more savvy than I. Okay, yeah, so I think that's a really, really great recommendation to look into for these videos. I thank you for asking about it, and I think I can circle back with my team to see what we can do there and offer them up. I have to say, I have to also look into creating subtitles and then distributing them to you all and making sure that they're available in such a way that you can then all use them on your videos. And so there's a very doable learning curve for me and my team, I think, that we will tackle. So thank you for asking about that. I see, oh, hey, Sarah, go for it.
Hey, well, I just wanted to thank you, Hannah, and your team. I mean, this has been really great. So it's nice to attend this workshop a second time, more with the facilitation stuff in mind and not with my professorial hat on. But I have to just tell the group, so we did a couple of very small workshops where my students did the presentation. So most of them in this class are traditional college age, even though some of my students are much older, but these students are mostly, straight out of high school or close to it. And, it was really great to see them take the materials and make it their own to some degree. And I know the peer-to-peer model doesn't necessarily work everywhere, but I think it was really effective on our campus. And it was interesting because a lot of the questions and issues that were raised weren't about the science of the vaccine. And so, it led to some interesting discussions. People are concerned about other people in their homes, which then we could tie back to the community and the unity and creating safe communities. But yeah, so I wanted to thank you for all the work that you've done. And it's also great to see so many CBOs in the room. And I do a lot of community engagement at the college. So if anyone is interested, please reach out and we can connect about, this type of work.
Thanks so much for sharing, Sarah. And that reminded me that something I also wanted to share with this group is that I mentioned that the Q&A kind of annex, I think it's Annex A in the Facilitator Guide, all is updated right now with questions that we have received through the workshopping of this module. Not every question, but the ones that were asked commonly, kind of repeatedly. If there are other questions that you need support in answering as you begin to facilitate this, we will update that annex. And I actually do have a couple based on when Sarah's team and the young people she works with just recently facilitated this. There are a couple that she shared with me that were asked that I think are important to add as well, and that update will be made soon. So, anytime you either notice a question coming up repeatedly that is not listed in that annex, or there is something that you feel would make you more comfortable in your own facilitation, you can let us know and we will add those. And on the first page of the Facilitator Guide, there's a little date stamp at the bottom that shows the last day that the guide was updated. So we'll continue to maintain that. And Dawn asked what the age groups were we workshop the slides with. So primarily, the majority of the students have been high school age. Sarah's students were, as she mentioned, traditional college student age. The peer health educators, excuse me, that I workshopped with at Teens Pact at Community Healthcare Network are a mix of high school and college age. And then I workshopped with the Urban Assembly School, and that was with their entire 9th through 12th grade. So I think that was about that was at least 175 students there who were in high school. And that was the first round of workshopping that we did. And we made, appropriate edits based on the feedback that the teachers and I kind of engaged in, how we noticed, the sequencing especially was really built based on that kind of initial round of workshopping. For those who are interested in that sort of stuff, kind of the ladder that we built of learning from the sequence of the videos. And then we expanded it to kind of really confirm that it worked with older youth as well, through Teens Pact and Hostos. Any other, and thank you all so much for this discussion. It's just so exciting to talk about the workshop. This is a very special day. This has been in the works for a long time. And maybe something else I would share with you for those interested in its creation is that we really started workshopping this back in the spring. I worked with Urban Assembly before their spring semester ended, and it became clear over time as we workshopped it with Urban Assembly, with Teens Pact, with Hostos, that this basic science-based module as a kind of facilitator of discussion, as a way to address the topics of the day, which back in the spring were a lot more focused kind of on the emergence of Delta, and have since become more focused on things like, of course now, emergency use authorization for younger children, or for returning to work, or workplace mandates. And we've really kind of used this workshop as a way to field those questions over time. And I've seen really the benefit of this very basic kind of science-based explanation of the vaccines as a way to engage those questions as something that we can really use continually. I think for those of us who work in education, and especially in COVID, it can be easy sometimes to think that these basics have really been covered. But I've seen again and again at all of the sites I've workshopped this with, that that's not the case, especially for these young people. And so there's to provide them with the language to speak about the vaccines on a basic level is really a kind of a baseline trust builder of our public health systems, as well as the vaccines. So we've got about 15 minutes left. I'm happy to take any additional questions or comments from the group, but I certainly won't keep you till the end if we may have come to a natural conclusion. So I'll pause there to see if there are any final questions before we close. And I'll just add as well that when you close this workshop, oh, there it is in the chat now. When you close the Zoom, a quick 2-question survey will appear for you to share your anonymous evaluation of this workshop. So it should take about 15 seconds to answer. And I really appreciate your feedback and thoughts on that. And if you have any, we can't unfortunately ask an open-ended question, but if you have any questions or feedback for me, if you'd like to stay in touch either about facilitating this workshop, letting us know how it goes, or other questions about support that the Vaccine Literacy Campaign can provide you in the work you're doing with community, you're more than welcome to reach out. We're happy to support in whatever way we can. And if there are no other questions, thank you again for being here today, and for being the first group of facilitators to receive this content. Thanks, Matthew. All right, thank you so much. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.